the basic flaw in Bitcoin is that it doesn't have any actual value.
The price of Bitcoin has to rise by default.
What are you talking about?
Peter, do you want to come back on that?
People need gold. I mean, look, here's a gold watch.
But gold suffers from everything you just said even more.
Welcome to the Capital.com debates. Today, we're debating the future of Bitcoin. With the crypto winter here, we're asking, is Bitcoin dead? Is the current crash the end for the original cryptocurrency? Or will it recover and go on to new heights? Our guests today to debate this topic are Peter Schiff and Tone Vays, both well-respected commentators in the world of finance and crypto. Peter, who's been with us before, is a financial commentator, radio personality and stockbroker. He runs his own podcast, Schiff Radio, which is also published on YouTube. Peter is the CEO of Euro-Pacific Capital and is involved in a number of other financial firms. A big advocate for investing in gold, Peter is also a well-known cryptocurrency critic. Tone Vays is a derivatives trader, analyst and conference founder. Tone worked on Wall Street for almost 10 years, starting as a risk analyst at Bear Stearns and later becoming a VP at JP Morgan Chase in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. He's also the founder of a series of networking events called the Financial Summit for those in the world of finance. Tone is a big advocate of Bitcoin and the technology which makes it possible because, as he says, it helps promote economic freedom and privacy. Now, it should be made clear at this point that the two guests are not connected with Capital.com and any views that they have are personal to them and are not representative of Capital.com. Okay, let's get into it. First off, we're giving both guests 90 seconds to make their case. So Peter, let's start with you first. Simple question, is Bitcoin dead?
Well, I don't know if it's dead yet, but it's dying. And as far as Bitcoin's future, I don't think it really has one other than to be remembered alongside of Tulip Mania or Charles Ponzi or some of those type of examples of, manias. I don't think Bitcoin is going to be what its early adapters had hoped it would be, some type of alternative form of money, that it would replace fiat currencies or that it could replace gold. I don't think it's going to replace anything. I think a lot of people are going to end up losing a lot of money in Bitcoin. I mean, the basic flaw in Bitcoin is that it doesn't have any actual value. I can't do anything with it, nor can the person who buys it from me. It really is just a modern example of the greater fool theory. But I think the problem is we've run out of fools. And that's why the price of Bitcoin has dropped by about 70%. As we're doing this discussion, it's just below 20,000.
Tone, same question over to you. Is Bitcoin dead?
Bitcoin has two unique properties in this world that did not exist before Bitcoin. One of those properties is unconfiscatability. It is the first asset in human history that you can store in your head with no one else being able to confiscate it because they have a bigger gun. The other property that Bitcoin has is censorship-resistant value transfer. You can send Bitcoin from one person to another person anywhere in the world, and that transaction cannot be technologically stopped or stopped in any way. These two unique properties only hold in Bitcoin because of its decentralization and the global mining structure of proof of work that Satoshi invented to solve the computer science double spend problem. This is the technological innovation that a lot of people are missing. And these two properties allow Bitcoin to escape this Ponzi scheme aspect of you just buy it and resell it to someone else, because there is an incentive to holding it and to using it that didn't exist before. And the fact that it is capped at 21 million and the decentralized network will keep that cap makes sure that as these properties become more useful to everyone around the world, the price of Bitcoin has to rise by default because there is a limited quantity of Bitcoin.
So Tone, what do you think about Bitcoin's spectacular fall in value? Do you think that, okay, I accept you say it's still going to be around, but do you think Bitcoin is in something of a death spiral and we're going to see even lower values of Bitcoin?
This is the first time Bitcoin is suffering an overall bear market and an overall recession. Bitcoin benefited greatly from this 10, 13-year bull run since 2009 in the overall market. And I'm pretty sure Bitcoin will survive this. There are so many buyers of last resort, including myself. The system will be fine. The bull market will come, again, as these properties become more useful, and the US government using the US dollar as a weapon will only make people realize how useful Bitcoin is. It's gone through this many times before, and this is just another drop.
Peter, picking up on that last sentence there from Tone, we've seen Bitcoin plunge 50, 60% before, only to go racing away to new highs. Do you think this time it is different, this crash that we're going through for Bitcoin?
Look, I think if you look at the speculative frenzy that took place in 2021, with NFTs and all these various altcoins, there's more than 20,000 now of these crypto tokens. But if you also look at all of the money that was poured into this by the crypto industry, all of the conferences, the massive advertising campaigns, the commercials, the celebrity endorsements, the Super Bowl ads. I mean, I've never seen so much money pumped into crypto, yet the price went down. And so what that shows me is that we went through a period of massive distribution where people who had been buying Bitcoin years ago just spent a ton of money to sucker in a whole new group of buyers so they could get out. And now, you have, a lot of people that own Bitcoin that only own it to make money. They have no philosophical connection. They're not, libertarian, anti-Fed. They just, followed Matt Damon, or Spike Lee or whoever, and they bought it because they thought it's cool and hip and I'm going to make money. I'm going to get rich, I think it's over. All of this is imploding now. And I think that's very different from the boom and bust cycles that Bitcoin experienced in the past. I think this is the end of the cycle.
It's commonly referred to, Bitcoin, as digital gold. We know your views on gold, but people would say, okay, Bitcoin, digital gold, the scarcity here makes some people think that it can serve as an inflation hedge for fiat currencies. So do you think that actually Bitcoin is going to replace gold as an inflation hedge?
Remember, to be an inflation hedge, you have to be a store of value. You have to have some underlying value that can be stored. Bitcoin doesn't have any value. It has a price, but you can't store a price as the price is subject to the market. So Bitcoin is the antithesis of gold. It's anti-gold. So it is never going to replace gold as either a store of value, as an inflation hedge, as a monetary asset. If anything, it is a highly speculative collectible token. That's what it is. And if people want to collect Bitcoin, maybe there'll be demand for Bitcoin. But if people want a store of value and they want to hedge against inflation, they will not consider Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin wouldn't even pop up as a choice if that's what you're looking for.
Okay, Tone, I can see you smiling there. Peter describing Bitcoin as the anti-gold, a collectible, perhaps like people collect stamps or Cabbage Patch dolls back in the 90s. What's your take on comparing Bitcoin and gold?
Sure. I think gold, it's hard to say Bitcoin is an inflation hedge because Bitcoin is so volatile because it's such a new asset. Bitcoin is pretty correlated to the stock market at the moment, but I think that correlation will eventually go away. Bitcoin is just a unique brand new asset. And I don't compare Bitcoin to anything else in crypto. To me, Ethereum is a centralized corporation. To me, Ethereum, which is like the next most decentralized thing in crypto, to me, Ethereum has more in common with Microsoft stock than it does with Bitcoin itself. Bitcoin is just super unique. Now, as an inflation hedge, my personal favorite inflation hedge is actually, and Peter is going to laugh here, is the S&P 500. That's my favorite inflation hedge. Because while gold can, can buy you the same suit for the same amount of gold all throughout history, gold doesn't adjust for the improvement in global technology. And global technology has been evolving a lot over the last 100 years. And Bitcoin is just that evolution. With modern banking in the last 100 years, silver will no longer be money again, because silver used to be money as well as a micropayment to gold. In a modern financial system, 70, 80 years ago, now you have paper currency backed by gold, so there's no need for silver anymore, because gold can now scale to any payments, and no one is going to be handing each other gold in today's society. You would need a centralized pocket of gold and then using digital version of that gold. So again, there's no need for silver. Silver will only be an industrial metal. Bitcoin is doing the same thing to gold. Gold will eventually become only an industrial metal because gold is as scarce as gold, if not more, and that cap is not changing. It is more scalable than gold for transaction, and you don't need to centralize Bitcoin in one place in order to use it like you have to with gold. So the way in the last 100 years gold has removed silver as being money, Bitcoin will do the same to gold as gold simply becomes a metal, and it's a great useful metal for the industry.
Peter, do you want to come back on that? Gold and silver just going to be industrial metals?
No, well, they're also precious metals. They're not just going to be industrial metals. I mean, gold's going to be used in jewelry. But look, gold's monetary properties are not going to be replaced by Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin can never be gold because, again, there is no underlying use for Bitcoin. I don't care how easy it is for you to transfer it and whether it's permissionless or censorship resistant. None of that matters if at the end of the day what you're transferring doesn't have any actual use. And so it's not going to be able to take gold's place. It hasn't yet. It hasn't even come close. I mean, it hasn't done anything that gold does. And, I think that you're going to see as, the inflation takes hold that, we're in. And right now you have a lot of optimism that the Federal Reserve and maybe other central banks can do something to stop inflation, but they can't. Inflation is a real problem. It's going to keep getting worse. Central banks are not going to be able to raise interest rates enough to stop it. They're not going to have the political will to cut government spending. So the money printing is going to continue, and you're going to see a rush into gold.
One of Bitcoin's most controversial features is its high use of energy. So we know we're in an age of greater concern about environmental issues, climate change. So how do you address concerns around Bitcoin's high use of energy?
It's a distorted view on humanity. Humans have evolved, and life is better the more energy we use. Yes, I do care about the environment. I actually have a degree in geology along with my financial engineering background. But Bitcoin use actually helps the world. We can do good things to the world. Just because we use energy doesn't make us bad. Bitcoin miners have actually proven to make general creation of energy more efficient and cleaner. Instead of burning off natural gas, Bitcoin miners can come in and utilize this natural gas for Bitcoin mining. They can make electric grids more efficient. This demonization of the use of energy for mining Bitcoin is so backwards, like many of the other things the global elites are pushing onto people in order to keep us down. I'm sure Peter would agree with all the things that the global elites do to try to just hold humanity back. So a lot of these views are just wrong. They're factually wrong, and it's hard to debate them because of their bad facts. So not to mention that even if Bitcoin starts to use half of the world energy, it still makes the world better because it will separate government's control of your money and government's control of like the way you use and spend money. This is a good thing. This is not a bad thing.
Peter, so Bitcoin using lots of energy, it's all right because it's doing the world good. It's making it a better place. Does the high use of energy of Bitcoin concern you?
No, I don't think the world is better off because of Bitcoin. I don't think having so many people gambling is improving the world. I think we're wasting a tremendous amount of energy creating Bitcoin. Yes, there's a demand for Bitcoin now because people think they're going to get rich. And so we're wasting all this energy that could otherwise be put to more productive uses. And I think one of the good things about the eventual collapse of Bitcoin is that we won't be wasting all that energy on Bitcoin anymore. That energy will be available to be put to more productive uses. And I think a lot of people are going to see a huge decline in their standard of living when they realize that they flushed away a good chunk of their life savings, on a pyramid scheme.
Could Bitcoin replace, I mean, this is a big question, could Bitcoin replace our world of government-backed fiat currencies controlled by central banks? I think there might be a bit of a difference of opinion on this. So, Tone, I'll throw that one over to you first of all. Can it replace the dollar, the euro, the yen, the pound that are controlled by the central banks?
Absolutely. Not only can it, I personally believe that it will, but it will take another decade. It's not going to happen tomorrow. A lot of people think that Bitcoin can do anything and everything. No, it is slow to evolve. And people have to accept it and trust it. I think that the government has proven, especially with this Russia-Ukraine military conflict, they just kicked Russia off of the SWIFT system. Those are the rails. That's like the Bitcoin network. They confiscated Russian oligarchs, which is just another name for a businessman. They confiscated their wealth. Well, if they had a fraction, everyone wants a yacht, everyone wants a nice apartment, everyone wants an airplane. But if they held a fraction of that wealth in Bitcoin, it would not have been confiscated. Now, we can debate whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Of course, we want to confiscate the assets of the people and the governments we don't like, just like they confiscated Russian money at the central banks. But Bitcoin now provides this unique ability for other countries not to confiscate your money for political reasons. Canada shut down banks of truckers. Canada tried to shut down bank accounts for people that donated $25 for political contributions that the Canadian government didn't like. These are the actions that Bitcoin will remove from government's ability to control people with the financial system. And as the moment you discover Bitcoin and these use cases, you're not going back. Just like the moment you discovered the internet and how you can get your email instead of snail mail, how you can pay your bills online instead of writing checks. As more and more people discover these use cases and the ability to do that, why would they ever go back to the old financial system?
Peter, same one to you. Does this mean that as Tone was saying there, it might take 10 years, but in 10 years' time, we are going to be bidding au revoir to the euro because Bitcoin is going to replace these government-backed fiat currencies? So, Peter, are we going to see Bitcoin replace all these fiat currencies?
Bitcoin is not going to replace anything. It's not going to function as a medium of exchange, unit of account. I mean, it isn't functioning as one now. It hasn't been able to achieve that yet. I don't know why it would be any different over another 10 years. It's not going to do it. But I do believe that the world needs alternatives to what central banks have been providing. Central bank fiat currencies are a failure. And to the extent that the private sector wants to offer individuals a improvement, a viable alternative to euros and dollars and yen, it can do it with gold. And in fact, if private companies want to issue their own digital currencies backed up by reserves of gold, where you know that each token, let's say, is 1 gram of gold, and you can go and you can get your gold, or you could just, transact in these tokens that are redeemable in gold, you're going back to the original form of paper money. Initially, it was private banks, not governments, that were issuing paper currency backed up by the gold they had in reserve. And then those paper notes would circulate as a replacement for the gold itself because it was easier to transact in. So the world can do that now. Companies can issue cryptocurrencies backed by the gold that they have in storage. And now you have a viable currency that is going to be superior to a dollar or a euro. Or I don't think the governments feel threatened at all by Bitcoin because it's not an improvement over the dollar or the euro. I mean, it's not even as good as a medium of exchange or a unit of account.
Tone, to go back to something you said when we were talking about replacing fiat currencies, you said when Bitcoin recovers to 40, 50,000. But with all of its current struggles, do you think that actually there's a chance this time round we're not going to see it recover? I think people have been lured into, it's fine, stick the head in the sand, it'll come off 60, 70%, but it will bounce back. But Tone, do you think this time round there's a chance we won't see Bitcoin bounce back?
No, I'm actually more confident in Bitcoin's future today than I was at the last bear market, than I was in the bear market before. With every single year that Bitcoin continues to be a stable network, it may not have a very stable unit of account, it may have a lot of volatility, but the network itself, Bitcoin doesn't go down. It has not gone down. As Bitcoin network continues to be stable with transactions going through, they may not be as fast as you like. You may not get it in 10 minutes, but you'll get it within the hour. But that's only because there are too many transactions to compete with and they're paying a higher fee. As Bitcoin continues to be technologically stable, and it's becoming that way because it's harder and harder to make changes to Bitcoin. The code might actually get fully locked down because of all these debates. That makes Bitcoin more stable. People get more and more confidence. And everything that Peter described is great, but these are still centralized systems.
Peter, to throw this over to you. So Tone's saying, actually, he's more confident than ever about Bitcoin, despite this 60, 70% crash in its price. What do you think? Do you think actually in 6 months' time, we're all going to be regretting not buying the dip and it's going to thrive again?
Well, I won't be regretting it. And, I don't think the dip is finished dipping. So, let's see what happens on this next leg down. I think Bitcoin is headed to 10,000, on this next drop, probably below. And I also think we haven't seen the margin calls yet. I think that there are a lot of people who borrowed a lot of money against their Bitcoin who have low cost basis. And the Bitcoin went way up. They didn't want to sell, but they wanted to buy stuff. Maybe they wanted a new car. Maybe they wanted to take a vacation. And so they went out and they borrowed some money and they pledged their Bitcoin as collateral. And I think once we get down below 10,000, I think a lot of the margin calls are going to come. And a lot of people are going to be forced to sell their Bitcoin who don't even want to sell it.
This bear market is a lot more painful. Even though we've fallen less, we've only fallen 60% compared to like 80% in the last one and like almost 90% in the one before. And the reason it feels more painful is because as with each bubble of Bitcoin, more people are using Bitcoin, more companies are getting involved, more people are starting businesses because they feel wealthy. So with every one of these dips, even though it dips a smaller percentage, it is actually a lot more painful. And my businesses are feeling it a lot more on this bear market than in the last one. I was around for the prior two bear markets. This one has hurt me like 2 to 3 times more, even though the price has fallen a lot less than in the prior ones.
So far,
and
this bear market's not over. This thing is not over yet. You don't know how low it's
I
going to
agree
go.
with you. It can go lower, but this is how Bitcoin corrects. If it was so easy to get rich, everybody would be rich.
But you have to remember, in the past, every time we had a big boom and bust, they would say, okay, no more boom and bust. Now it's matured. Now that Bitcoin is at such a high price, it's never going to do that again. They always promise that volatility is a thing of the past. People were saying that the higher the price of Bitcoin goes, the less risky it becomes. I mean, I remember all that nonsense.
To me, I do not profess to understand the technological side of Bitcoin. For me, it's very much a market, look at it as a market like any other. But I think a common question for perhaps the casual Bitcoin observer, and I'll put this to you first, Tone, why after so long is Bitcoin still not being commonly used for transactions? Why is it still mainly this speculative thing rather than being used in everyday transactions, which arguably is, of course, what it was designed for? Tone, to you first.
Guys, come on, it's only 10 years old. I hate calling it 13 years old. The first 3 years didn't matter. Nobody used it. Nobody knew it existed. Well, Peter Schiff probably knew it existed before I did, but because he has had a big following. But guys, it's so young. I mean, it's like there was a company called General Magic in 1989. They tried to build a modern day cell phone. Every smart engineer went to build this modern day cell phone in 1989. They couldn't do it. And while they were spending time building this thing, the entire internet creation passed them by. First of all, we're very, very early. Bitcoin is still very, very volatile. It's not going to be, unit of account is going to be the last thing that's going to come into Bitcoin. It is already starting to be used for transactions. The technology to use it for small transactions is only becoming robust right now. That is just starting to get a little bit adopted. We still have a long way to go. We were all using the internet, and then the smartphone came, and then even that took some time to evolve. How much has our smartphone evolved in the last 10 years? Barely at all. So these things do move kind of slow. People expect Bitcoin to solve all the world's problems today. And I'm sorry, it's going to take a little bit of time, but we will get there as, the traditional fiat system and all this government debt starts to implode, as we're seeing it right now with the euro. I think once the euro breaks up into its components, we're going to see some serious Bitcoin adoption. There's multiple reasons why it's not there yet, but it's coming.
Tone, I think that's actually a really interesting comparison, saying we're at the brick-sized mobile phone moment for Bitcoin and a long way away from the iPhone 18 moment for Bitcoin. So Peter, over to you. Going back to the original question, why aren't we seeing Bitcoin used by the man or the woman in the street as a way of payment? It doesn't seem to have moved forward at all to me in the last few years.
That's because it's not an efficient method of payment. It's slow. It's expensive relative to people can use their debit card or Apple Pay or cash, depending on where they are. But there are so many other more efficient ways. You got PayPal, Venmo, and also remember that goods and services are not priced in Bitcoin. So in order to transact in Bitcoin, you have to start converting. Oh, okay, well, this is $10. Well, how many Satoshis is it? I mean, why bother? You got $10, pay dollars. But, also, most people that own Bitcoin, I mean, pretty much everybody, the last thing they want to do is spend it. I mean, they think it's going to go up. They want to hoard it. I mean, so it's like even if you could they don't want to. People just want to hold on to it because they think they're going to get rich. So if they're going to buy something, the last thing they're going to do is use their Bitcoin. They want to buy more Bitcoin. So it's just that there is no incentive anywhere to use it as a payment method. And so that's why it's not used. I mean, right now, people want to hold Bitcoin because they think they're going to get rich. And I think soon they're going to want to unload their Bitcoin before they go broke. And it's going to be, like a hot potato. And everybody's going to want to get rid of their Bitcoin. And I just don't think you're going to have enough people left to buy. I mean, I think all the buyers, they're in. I mean, the true believers already own all the Bitcoin. They're not going to buy anymore. They're not going to have the ability. And I think a lot of people are going to end up having to sell their Bitcoin, whether they're forced to sell it because they borrowed money against it or just because they're unemployed and they need to buy food, they need to pay the rent, and the grocery store doesn't accept Bitcoin. The landlord doesn't want Bitcoin. So they got to start selling Bitcoin to pay their bills.
But gold suffers from everything you just said even more.
I don't see the similarity.
Everything Peter just said applies to gold today, and it's applied to gold for the last 30 years. And it's going to continue applying to gold, even more so. No one's going to price anything in gold.
What are you talking about? Look, people need gold. I mean, look, here's a gold watch. You want to make a gold watch? Sure. Well, I want it. A lot of people want it. They pay a lot of money for these gold watches. They're nice. And you need gold to make them. Gold is used in all sorts of things, and there's all sorts of real demand for gold. People have to buy it. They need it. That's why the price of gold is pretty stable. I mean, gold's, around $1,730 an ounce right now. I mean, 20 years ago it was under $300 an ounce. So it's been on a steady appreciation as, we've printed a lot of money. And I think the price is going to keep on going up, but it's not really the price of gold that's going anywhere. It's the value of fiat currencies that are going down. And as they continue to lose purchasing power, you'll need more and more dollars to buy an ounce of gold.
Right. You also just made an amazing case for Bitcoin, by the way, Peter.
No, I'm not making any case for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's nothing. Bitcoin has no value. I don't care. I mean, look, you could be delusional right now, and you think Bitcoin has value. Fine. So hold on to it.
We're coming to the end of the debate now. Let's talk a bit about our audience here at Capital.com. Are mostly made up of traders and prospective traders. So in the wake of this crypto crash, crypto winter, the recent performance of commodities and stocks, which assets do you think will do well? I can take a guess at what I think you might say, Peter, but I'll come to you though. First of all, what assets are going to do well considering the environment we're in?
Yeah, well, look, I think ultimately real assets are going to do well in an inflationary environment. I think, stocks, in particular, stocks that have good value as far as their ability to earn a profit and pay a dividend. I think to the extent that they have a lot of pricing power, that they're selling products and services that people need, not necessarily that they just want, but things that they have to buy, and therefore they'll pay the higher prices for them. I think, natural resources, I think when the dust settles, I think these emerging markets are going to take off. I think this rally in the dollar is a massive head fake, and the dollar is going to reverse in a spectacular way. So I think all commodities in general, especially precious metals, will thrive in an inflationary environment.
Tone, given the inflationary backdrop that we've experienced so far in 2022, what assets do you think are going to do well?
I think commodities are going to do really well, especially things like oil, gas. I think those commodities will do super well. Gold will probably be okay. We saw this massive discovery or they announced, who knows if it's true or not, the massive discovery of gold in Uganda. That kind of has the speculators.
Yeah, that's a bunch of nonsense.
So probably, it probably is. The markets don't always act on real data. It's speculative. Gold is price discovery of gold is through gold paper futures. and you make an announcement, and speculators pile in. So that could last for a little while as well. I think gold would do well, but not spectacularly well. It will rise. I do also think with like Peter that stocks will be okay. I am expecting a rebound in the stock market. However, I do expect the dollar to rise. I've always expected the dollar to rise. I've been talking about it on YouTube for 6-7 years now. When I started, I was talking about it before that, but no one heard it. I am expecting a bull market in the dollar. The only time I ever lost confidence in the dollar was right after the election of Joe Biden. But the euro seems to be imploding faster, so the dollar I think will do well. And I do think Bitcoin will do well. If the stock market recovers this year like I expect it to, then Bitcoin seems to be correlated with the stock market, because for now it trades like a high-tech stock. If the stock market, if I'm wrong and the stock market does continue to go down another year in a massive bear market, then Bitcoin will eventually just decouple. It will probably go down further with the market, but eventually decouple, because there's only so much Bitcoin to go around. And another Bitcoin halving is coming, and this cap of 21 million Bitcoin always eventually rears its ugly head on those that forgot to buy Bitcoin when it was super dirt cheap. So, of course, I'm high on Bitcoin. I'm somewhat high on the stock market, commodities, especially the energy sector.
Peter, Tone, thank you both very much for joining us for this debate. You can also catch more of Peter Schiff and Tone Vays on their respective YouTube channels. Both of our guests can also be found on Twitter. And of course, as stated at the top, our two guests today are not connected with Capital.com, and any views they have aired during the debate are personal to them and are not representative of Capital.com. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay alerted to all of our latest videos, from regular chart analysis on the markets to macroeconomic explainers on the key financial topics of the day.